Hi everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Today I'm going to be talking about the Booker Prize and trying to answer the question, do I like Booker Prize books? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name's Alice and I have way too many books, and today I wanted to discuss a topic that I've not discussed before on my channel, which is the Booker Prize. Now, up until this year, 2022, I didn't really think that I liked prize winning books or was interested in prizes in general. And we'll go into this later in the video, but I've not really read that many prize winning or prize nominated books, and when I have, I've generally felt kind of disappointed. I guess my criteria for what I enjoy in reading is not necessarily what is being looked for in a prize. But this year I kicked off the year by judging the first round of the BookTube prize, and this was my first real experience with prizes, and I ended up reading the book that won last year's Booker Prize in my first round judging, The Promise by Damon Galgut, and also through my group I ended up reading at least one other from the Booker shortlist that from last year. The next thing that happened is a lot of people that I know on BookTube started to talk about the Women's Prize for Fiction back in sort of March and April time. I was intrigued by the Women's Prize, and if you want to see my thoughts on the shortlist, which I attempted to read all of, do go and check out this video that I made with the lovely Gemma from Gem of Books, where we talked about the shortlist and our experiences of reading it and which ones we thought should win or would win the prize. Now it is Booker Prize season, and I was not totally surprised to find myself drawn into the hype again, because I have to say that reading books from the Women's Prize shortlist has led me to find some of my favourite books of this year. And not just the shortlist, the long list. One of my absolute favourite books so far this year has been Careless by Kirsty Capes, which was on the long list and was definitely robbed. I enjoyed the Women's Prize shortlist with the exception of one book, and it definitely got me to thinking that prize books can be a good thing and can broaden your horizons and get you out of your comfort zone. That's definitely what the BookTube prize did for me. So on to the Booker Prize. When the long list of this was announced, I was actually very pleasantly surprised that not all of them sounded super difficult or super long. There's quite a few short books on the list this year, and I decided to read a couple. Some I decided to read because they were very, very short and I could get the audio of them, and I thought it would be a good 2-hour listen. Some of them I decided to read as buddy reads, and one book was actually already on my radar and on my giant TBR by the time this list was announced. So what I'd like to do today in this video is talk about, firstly, the Booker Prize itself, a bit about the history and whether I have in fact read or enjoyed any of the prize winners so far. Next, I'll be talking about how have I engaged with the Booker Prize this year. Do I think this is a prize that highlights books that I enjoy? What is the Booker Prize, first of all? Some of you may be watching this and thinking, I don't pay any attention to prizes. I didn't before this year. So I don't know what the Booker Prize is or what it's awarded for. So the Booker Prize has been awarded each year since 1969, and it's a prize for the best original full-length novel, and the book has to have been published in the UK and Ireland between October and September of the following year. So let's talk about winners so far that I have actually read. Some of these I've actually read this year, and others of these I've read a long time ago, long before BookTube. So the first winner that I've read was the 1978 winner, The Sea by Iris Murdoch, which I actually read earlier this year with Sandy over at Ms Reads a Lot's 1001 book club, and I actually really did enjoy that book, but I was coming to it at a time when I have been enjoying that more literary fiction side of things a lot more this year, so I'm not sure if it's a book that I would have appreciated in the past, but I did really enjoy it this year. I also have on my TBR 2 books. One is the 1989 winner, The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro, and the other is the 1998 winner, Amsterdam by Ian McEwan, which I plan to read this month for Shorty September. I haven't read any other books that have won the Booker Prize until the early 2000s, but I did read one of the shortlist from 1989, which was Cat's Eye by Margaret Atwood, and that is a book that I really did love. So let's move on into the 2000s. In 2001, the winner was The True History of the Kelly Gang, and I did read this, and I've read it since starting on BookTube. I had this on my giant TBR for a very, very long time, and I finally read it last summer, and I didn't like it at all. This is a book by Carey, and it really felt to me like a book written to get a prize. That may be unfair to it. I read it and thought, one, this is not my cup of tea, and two, it has a sort of a unique style to it, which I think is often a theme of Booker Prize books. But what I didn't like was, I thought it would really get good when Ned Kelly actually became an outlaw and did some of the things he was famous for. But for me, it actually never got good. I was bored pretty much throughout reading that book. I also DNF'd the 2002 winner quite a long time ago, which was Life of Pi by Yann Martel. And I also read the 2003 winner way back, which is Vernon, God, Little by DBC Pierre. And this was a book that I remember sort of mildly liking, but it definitely gave me the feeling that Booker Prize books often have, which is that there's something to it that isn't quite my style. But I thought Vernon, God, Little was an okay book, and it's not a book that I would necessarily say I will never read again. I don't really remember it that well. It hasn't made a lasting impression on me either way. And then we come to the later 2000s. In 2009 and in 2012, Hilary Mantel won the Booker Prize for her first 2 books in her trilogy, Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies. I've read both of those books in the past year, and I absolutely loved them. And I definitely can see why these are the sort of books that would win a Booker Prize. The language and the style does take a bit of breaking into. It took me a while to really get my head around the way Mantel writes, but once I was in that headspace, I absolutely loved Bring Up the Bodies. I thought it was amazing, and I think Wolf Hall is an amazing book as well. So after that, I have read no more Booker Prize winning books until last year's Booker Prize winning book, The Promise by Damon Galgut. Now, this was a book that I didn't dislike. I thought it was quite a good book, but the other books that I have read that were shortlisted or longlisted, I've liked every single one of them more than I liked The Promise. I didn't love the style of writing in The Promise. My general feelings with some of the Booker Prize books that I've read, which as you've just heard is not very many, is that they often try to do something sort of rule breaking with language or something different with language. And what Damon Galgut was doing was not really with language, but more with like forgetting about doing any kind of breaks in the text at all, and no speech punctuation, which does often annoy me quite a bit. It was not at all broken up, other than it was in 4 different sections named after 4 different people. So yeah, I didn't love The Promise, and I did rate it my least favourite out of the 6 I read for the BookTube Prize. The other books that I have read from last year's Longlist are Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro and China Room by Sunjeev Sahota. And the other books that I've read from the shortlist are The Fortune Men by Nadifa Mohamed and Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. Of those books, obviously my top favourite was Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. I really find it hard to comprehend that this book has been deemed not worthy of winning either a Booker Prize or the Women's Prize. I absolutely love this book and I think it's an epic. And for an epic like this of historical fiction to draw me in the way it did, I just think it's a really wonderful book. So highly, highly recommend that one. I also really enjoyed both China Room and Klara and the Sun, and I thought The Fortune Men was fine. I also read that for the BookTube Prize, and again, it wasn't one of my absolute favourites, but I think Nadifa Mohamed is a really, really talented writer, and the writing that was on display in The Fortune Men was really, really special writing, even if the subject matter wasn't 100% the type of book that I would like to read. So that's my history with the Booker Prize, and it is admittedly not very many Booker winners or shortlisted books that I have read. But my reading taste is obviously changing and evolving since I've been on BookTube, and I do constantly feel this fear of missing out on these really good books that are rated highly enough to be on a prize shortlist. So the shortlist for the Booker Prize is going to be announced tomorrow for you if you're watching this on the day it came out, which is, I believe, Tuesday the 6th. I think it's happening at 7 p.m. So the long list has been out for a month and a bit, and I have read a few books from it. So I've already talked on my channel about Treacle Walker by Alan Garner and Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan, the two shortest books on the Booker long list this year. I liked both of these books. I thought Treacle Walker was doing very interesting things with sort of mythological ideas, but I did feel like it was going over my head a bit, so I don't think whatever myths and legends and things this was drawing on are things that I was actually familiar with. I did really enjoy some of the playful elements, like the way the young boy engages with his comic, even to the point of going into the pages of the comic. I thought that bit was very cool. But it was not a book that I would ever read again or would say that I loved. Small Things Like These, again, really, really beautiful writing in this book in places, and I would definitely pick up another book by Claire Keegan. I think her writing was really very lovely, and it was fine as a story, but again I felt like there was no real connection for me with this book. Both of those I listened to on audiobook. This third one I also listened to on audiobook, and that was The Colony by Audrey McGee. I liked this probably more than the previous two, but there were long sections of this book where I felt a bit bored, to be honest. And that sounds really, really harsh because it is a really well written book, basically taking place on an island off the coast of Ireland. And I enjoyed the juxtaposition of the very mundane, very slow pace of life on the island, with every alternate chapter was about an incident during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, and absolutely horrific incidents being portrayed in those chapters. I was intrigued by this book, and there was one character, James, who I particularly enjoyed his sort of narrative arc in this book, but this book didn't have enough for me to feel like it was a book I loved again. Same sort of feeling as I had with the other two. So over last weekend, I thought I had finally found a Booker Prize book that I love. And I had decided to read this book as a buddy read. It was already on my TBR before the list came out, and I was going to buddy read it in November with Ange from Ange's Book Chatter. We decided to move our buddy read forward to August to try and get most of it at least read before the shortlist was announced. What actually ended up happening was we started this over bank holiday weekend and we read it in a day, and it's The Trees by Percival Everett. books. I had been intrigued about the concept of the trees ever since I read about it when it was on the bookerprize list. And this is a book that I didn't necessarily expect to see on the bookerprize list. I feel like this is like the closest the bookerprize goes to picking a sort of a thriller, murder, mystery, crime type of book, because this centres around detectives, it centres around murders, and all of these murders appear to be racially motivated. There is a mysterious second body at each murder scene, which resembles Emmett Till, a young black man who was lynched. So these strange murders look very much like racially motivated revenge killings, basically. So far so good. This book has a very readable style, I thought, and also some very, very dark humour. I appreciated most of this humour at first. I did feel like the names in the book got a bit silly, and I just was disappointed by the ending, basically. When I have read a whole book in a day and sort of motivated to read more, I do find it disappointing when the book begins to tail off. So I enjoyed the first half of this a great deal more than I enjoyed the second half. Unfortunately, the very ending of this left me thinking that I hadn't understood it, and that always leaves me really, really disappointed in a book, especially if the book makes me feel like I'm not quite clever enough to get it. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed a lot of elements of the trees, but in the intervening week I haven't thought about this a lot, and that's a bit disappointing. But yeah, aside from the ending, I did enjoy largely the experience of reading the trees. Do I think it might get onto the shortlist? It's possible, but I also think it's equally possible that a different 6 books will be on the shortlist. I wouldn't say this was everybody's cup of tea, but I would say that for a bookerprize book, this is quite accessible. The video was going to be ending there, but I managed to get from my library at the beginning of the week Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies by Maddie Mortimer, which I had heard a lot of good things about. This has changed everything for me. This is a bookerprize book that I genuinely love. I thought this book was incredible. So I read this, even though it's a 400-page plus book, I read this in 2 afternoons, basically, over the course of 2 days, and I couldn't put this down. It was so gripping and so sad, so emotional on every level, this book. So if you have not heard anything about this book yet, it comes with the massive trigger warning that cancer has a voice in this book. Cancer is one of the narrators. This book follows Leah, who has cancer, and it follows the cancer inside her body, and it follows her remaining time with her family, and also goes back into her past. And I think that that would be a very, very hard read for a lot of people. However, I loved what this book does with language. It's a book that is really, really playful with language. The character Leah really enjoys looking at language and words and drawing out meanings in her artwork as well. And I just think that that is something that I also really, really love, is words and meanings and playing with them. And Maddie Mortimer does an amazing job of this. I loved the writing style in this. This is a debut novel. I would definitely read another book by Maddie Mortimer when she writes one. I understand that this is written, and you can tell it is, but I didn't know while reading it about this, but you can tell it is written by somebody who must have had experience with this. And I have heard since that Maddie Mortimer's own mother died when she was 14 of cancer. So this is an amazing book, but also obviously a deeply personal book, and a book that I can understand that a lot of people will not be able to read. I don't think it would be advisable to read this book if cancer is a really sensitive subject with you. I actually thought I was going to find this more difficult to read than I did, and as soon as it started I knew that it wasn't going to be as difficult to read as I thought, because it just pulled It's an amazing book. Don't know what else to say about it without spoiling it, but I thought this was absolutely wonderful. And for me, this is the best Booker Prize book I have ever read, regardless of whether it gets to the shortlist or whether it wins. It's a book I have really, really appreciated, really, really enjoyed. And although it is a hard read in places, I did enjoy being emotionally shattered to pieces by this writing. So yes, that was Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies by Maddie Mortimer, which is probably the book that has changed my mind about the Booker Prize. So, will I be reading any more Booker Prize books? I'm currently listening to Case Study by Graham McRae Burnett, and I hope to get to Night Crawling and Glory. Probably will audiobook both of those. The other books that are long listed this year are not really appealing to me for various reasons, but if there is one that you have read that you think I would enjoy, please do let me know in the comments down below and I will think about picking it up. There are definitely a couple more books on this list that if they reach the shortlist, I will definitely try harder to find them and get hold of them because they do sound intriguing. So I will be watching the Booker Prize shortlist announcement tomorrow, and I will be really, really hoping that Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies has made it onto that shortlist, because although I haven't read everything on this shortlist, for me this would be a worthy winner of any prize. I thought it was an excellent read. I would say in summary that I don't think the Booker Prize is necessarily a place where I'm going to find books that I love. I think a lot of books on this list are more literary than I really, really enjoy. I also think that prize lists offer potential for really great books that you might not be expecting to find. I must say that of the ones I've read so far, none of them have compared favourably to the books that I enjoyed from the Women's Prize shortlist this year, so maybe that is more my type of prize than this prize. But that remains to be seen, and maybe, just maybe, I have just read this year's Booker Prize winner, and if I have, I would be very, very happy with this as a winner. Thanks for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please do give it a like. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. What is your experience of the Booker Prize or any prizes? Do you read prize books or go out of your way to find them? And if you haven't in the past, has your mind been changed by any recent prizes like mine has? And do let me know, of course, in the comments down below whether you've read anything for this year's Booker Prize shortlist and what you thought of them. And we'll hope very much to see you all again soon for another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.